It is 3:30. We're ready to go live.
We are live.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, November the 10th, council agenda session. Could I have approval of minutes, please?
So moved.
All right. With no objection to the council, the minutes will stand as recorded. On our agenda this afternoon, which is pretty short, we have ordinances on first reading under planning. We went over these items last week. Councilman Ledford did a very thorough job going over each one of these. Is there any questions or comments to any of the proposed first readings? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item B, case number 0027, working with TDEC on getting some answers in this case. I anticipate quite a bit of time with this, with the holidays especially coming up. So I'm going to be making a deferral. This project is not time sensitive to the applicant. I'm going to be making a deferral date of January the 12th this evening. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you. Any other comments regarding any planning item? Okay.
Hey, Chair.
Councilman Byrd.
Yes, sir. On E, I'm gonna be asking for a 1-week deferral. I have a little bit more research to do on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, if there are no other questions concerning our planning items, we'll move on to resolutions. Madam Clerk, would you please read? Why does that say agenda for Tuesday, November 10th? Would you please read finance item A, please, 6A?
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the attached loan documents and any other necessary tax increment finance documents, which provide for a $4 million loan from the city to the Industrial Development Board for the city of Chattanooga, Tennessee, for the purpose of funding infrastructure improvements and other capital improvement projects at 3.5% interest rate for 20 years to fund infrastructure improvements within the East Chattanooga Rising TIF district pursuant to the Associated Economic Impact Plan for the area.
All right, Councilman Gilbert.
Yeah, can I just get a brief definition of what they're asking for? I know it's $4 million. I know it's going to be a loan from us, but are they saying that this will be determined by the board or where the money goes or what?
Mr. Attorney, I think, can shed a little bit of light on this.
Yes, yes, sir. This is a loan that the city is making to the IDB because if it's a tax increment financing arrangement, the Industrial Development Board has to be the owner of that property during the term of this arrangement. This is benefiting East Chattanooga with the Nippon plant going in this process. It's also talking about new infrastructure that will be located, I think, in 2 different directions that will be going. The city has already previously provided some relocation of sewer lines in this area to allow that plant to be developed. And there is the hope that there is a 15-acre tract on the side here. I'm sure Sharita can give you more information on that if you need it, but there is a 15-acre tract on the side that will be subject to new development, plus other parcels to the south that are currently owned by the city. So this will be helping the infrastructure and the roadways go in. That is the cost that at least the parties have believed would be appropriate in connection with this, and it will be coming back in the form of tax increment financing to the city after the development gets full up.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm glad, Phil, you mentioned Sharita, but you might be able to answer this. The infrastructure for the sewer, does this $4 million cover the cost for that sewer rebuild?
I believe that it does some. I don't believe it does all of the amount on here. That was one of the conditions for the donation, was the occurrence of the sewer line removal. There is also in the donation agreement the requirement that this goes in pretty quickly, and there is a requirement that the roadway has to be installed at least by 2022. I think it's June the 30th of 2022 that it's required to be put in. So that will have a new entrance into the area. It also has connection requirements that the plan has to be up and running and providing jobs here for our community by a specific deadline here by 2030. So all of those things are going in connection with this. And if they don't do it the way that they said they will, then they owe the city money back on the rework that we've done, which I think was about $1.5 million or maybe a little bit more than that.
Okay. Second part of that is what type of projects are we looking for with the TIFs? Are we looking for housing? Are we looking for commercial? Are we looking for manufacturing? Can you elaborate on what the IDB will be looking?
I think they're looking for a mixture that will be providing something for the community. If that is some type of mixed use development, then that will occur. I think that's more of what Sharita's folks will have to tell you as far as economic development. I believe they were looking for some mixture that will work with the residential character of that neighborhood as well, because it's blending over in connection with the manufacturing uses that will be coming in with Nippon.
Great. Last question. Does any of these funds correlate with any kind of discussion going on with putting in a trade school that's been talked about on site with the school that's there? Does any of these funds, can they be applied to? Are they involved in the discussion at all with renovating or repurposing the school?
Not to my knowledge so far here. I think that is a discussion that is coming to you here as it goes further, and it'll have to be something with the county whenever you get to that point.
Sure. Understood. Just thought I'd ask. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Yeah, just briefly, these TIF funds, as I understand it, Darren, are more toward infrastructure as opposed to the other things. And that's usually what TIFs very often are used for. So maybe Sharita wants to expound. Do you need more right now?
I'm good.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments regarding this item? Okay. The planning item B, we did cover last week during planning and zoning, and I have no questions regarding that. Council, if you would pull up your purchase items for this week and let me know if you have any questions concerning that. Councilman Ledford, I assume that's an old hand, sir.
Yes, sir, it is. Thank you.
Councilman Gilbert.
Yes, sir. For clarification to ask you, I know that tonight on the purchasing, I'm fine with that, but I'm looking at the emergency. Can they elaborate on that emergency? I believe that it's discussing cleaning up Salvation Army for sanitizing Salvation Army. I just want to make sure that's what it's for. And also on this particular company, do we have a contract with them since April to clean the other buildings? And if we did they clean the buildings during that time of COVID, or did the contract just says that if we clean or not clean, you still pay the same amount of money?
So I'm sure Mr. Salmons will give us an update or a briefing on the emergency purchase tonight at the 6:30 meeting. But if you would like for him to come on now, I mean, we could.
Well, I don't want to hold anything up. We can wait till later on.
Okay. All right. Very well. All right, council, let's see. Next week's agenda. Do you have any questions concerning next week's agenda? November the 17th.
Mr. Chair, we'll be going over some of this, at least as it relates to Public Works and Transportation in the committee meeting.
Very well. Okay, council, if you will pull up your future considerations and let me know if you have any concerns. The administration has let me know that all items on future considerations are being planned on, or are being planned to be placed on the 2-week agenda. So, Councilwoman Burrs, I know you had asked whenever items are going to be placed on the 2-week agenda from the future considerations, if you could be notified. So it's my understanding that all the items currently on future considerations will be on the 2-week agenda next week.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible that we could get the learning centers, if we can work out something to extend it past a year? Or do we have to renew the option every year?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question, given the fact that this council has so many times raised objection to multiple year contracts. But if you would like for me to, I will bring Ms. Sullivan in and let her explain why this is a year to year. Would you like for me to do that?
Or she could send it to me offline. I mean, it just, the early learning centers are something that we're gonna use, you know, ongoing. So it makes sense to just have a contract in place. I mean, I don't see us discontinuing having their early learning head start next year or the year after or the year after. And it's been going on way before I've been around.
Okay. I'll make a note of that and ask Ms. Sullivan to get with you offline.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks like as I look through the transportation, the CDOT ordinances, I do not see the one on next week for Beeson Drive, but it looks like the rest of these are actually on next week's agenda already.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's just a point of information that they're already there, and we'll be going over them in just a little bit.
Okay. All right, any other questions concerning future considerations? Now I see several hands up and I'm assuming these are old hands. Councilman Gilbert. There we go. Okay, we do not have a departmental report this evening. We'll postpone that. So at this time, we will go to our IDB discussion between council districts 4, 5, and 6 as they need to make an appointment to the IDB board. Anyone from 4, 5, or 6? Councilman Gilbert.
Yes, sir. I did provide council with, again, a resume of Jimmy Rogers with some information that if we go the route with the 9, which we probably will be doing, then we will have at least 6 to 5 new people on this particular board. And I think a lot of times we have discussed someone have the knowledge that's already there. Jimmy has, he's attorney for one. He also knows a lot about construction, and he's the vice president. So he's a good person and has the great knowledge of what goes on in IDB board. So I presented him again for this position.
Okay, did any of your colleagues from 4 or 6, let's see, 4, 5, yeah, 4 or 6 have anyone they'd like to put up as well?
You probably have to ask them.
That's what I'm doing, is asking.
Chairman, yeah,
I think Councilman Ledford has already said he would follow
Correct.
the lead of 5 and 6.
correct, sir.
Councilwoman Burrs, anything to add?
I will defer to my colleague.
Okay, very well. Councilman Gilbert, it looks like yours is the only nomination to be put forth for the IDB board. So I'm going to ask the attorney if he will place this on the agenda for consideration. Now, Councilman Gilbert, let me ask this question. Mr. Rogers is a constituent in District 4.
Correct.
Yes.
The appointment is coming from District 5. So if and when this council goes to a 9-member board with each council person having an appointment, will you claim Mr. Rogers as your District 5 appointment?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Mr. Rogers will be the District 5 appointment. All right, Mr. Attorney,
Yes, sir, for the 17th.
if that would please the council. If there are no objections, we'll place it on the 17th. Now, that does present us with one problem. Mr. Rogers is currently serving, and that does not fill a vacant seat. So next week, 7, 8, and 9 would need to make an appointment to the board. So I don't know how long y'all would like to present someone to this council. If you need more than a week, that's fine. But Districts 7, 8, and 9 will need to make an appointment to fill the vacancy that was created by Mr. Alan Leibowitz. 7, 8, and 9, are you good with that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
If you're looking for a time frame, I would, if it's all right with my colleagues, I would say in 2 weeks to give us an opportunity to go over some qualifications and come back with a presentation, if that's okay with my 8 and 9.
Okay. Let me look at the calendar. 2 weeks would be the 24th. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good if my colleagues are.
Which we will
And if not, please speak up. I'm
Yeah.
open. Yeah.
We will not have a strategic planning, but what we could do is do it at the end of agenda like we're doing today. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. All right. District 7, 8, and 9, we will need an appointment from you next week, in 2 weeks, the 24th. All right, very well. I think at this time we're ready to turn it over to Public Works and Transportation Committee. Councilman Mitchell,
Yes, sir.
I yield the chair to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can't fill your shoes, but I'll go forward with
Oh,
it.
sure you can.
Can I get approval of the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
Anybody against that? All right, we're going to start today with transportation resolutions for November 10th. We're going to go ahead and go through the agendas, and then we'll have discussions on a couple of other things following that. So with that, would you please read on November 10th, 7C?
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a proposal with the Tennessee Department of Transportation for state project number 33027-222-514, federal project number NH 31722, pin 112152.03, Bonnie Oaks Drive, Addison Road, to west of Bonnie Shire Drive. TDOT proposal for acceptance.
Councilman Gilbert.
I just want to make sure, is this going to be the entire from Lee Highway going up to Adamson Road? You hear me?
Do we have someone that can answer that question in transportation?
It's, Mr. Bailey is on the call with us, Councilman. Would you like to bring him in?
He is on his way.
Good afternoon, Council.
How you doing, sir?
I'm well. Councilman, do you mind repeating the question so I can make sure I give you the right answer?
The distance of this, is it from Lee Highway all the way up to this point of Adamson Street, Adamson Road? Is it the project that Bonnie Oaks we've been talking about for widening Bonnie Oaks?
Yes, sir. And let me check. I will double check. I assumed that this agreement was for the entire project, Councilman, along the entire length of what is funded by TDOT. But I just noticed, because you read that it specifies termini. Let me double check what those termini. They are phasing this project, so it's possible that this agreement is for only one phase and not for the whole thing. But I'll double check and make sure you get an answer.
That's what I'm looking for. I know it's in 3 phases.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I see no more questions. Let's go
Yeah,
to,
I've got one, Jerry. Just a minute. Blythe, go ahead and send me a copy of that too, because a big part of that's in District 6.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you. Councilman Gilbert, is that an old hand?
Old hand, sir.
All right, thank you. Let's go to set 6D, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to renew a services agreement in substantially the form attached between the City of Chattanooga, Tennessee and Nova Global for traffic infraction detection and enforcement program for a 1-year period per resolution number 30129.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Blythe, is this the photo enforcement?
Yes, it is, Mr. Councilman.
Okay, while we're here and in committee, can you clarify how many of those we have still in the city, 1, and 2, who sends out the tickets and who collects the fines from that, and how that relates? Phil, you may need to jump in on Tennessee state law. I think this would be a good time to refresh everybody.
Yes, sir.
Councilman, you put me on the spot. I'm gonna tell you what I think is the answer, but promise to confirm. And if I'm wrong, I will correct you. I will correct myself before 6 o'clock. There is one. There's one
camera
for speeding in the S curves of Hickson Pike. To preempt Mr. Noblet, who might add this later, the state changed the law roughly 3 years ago, might have been 4 years ago, that prevented us from using these devices anywhere other than school zones and S curves. So we've retained the one in the S curves, but removed all the others. There are some red light cameras, which are still legal. They only monitor for red light running, and those are, I believe, in 4 locations. I think all of them are on Highway 153. The citations. What was the second part of your question, Mr. Councilman?
Who sends out the citations and who collects it? So who would the person write the check to, so to speak, and who would enforce that?
Let me verify that
Sure.
aspect before I misspeak,
Sure.
Councilman.
Your turn, Phil.
Oh, yeah. The law here in Tennessee has changed since many of these contracts originally started. I think in 2017, there was a significant change. It did preserve those areas where there were, dangerous S curves, I believe, is specifically included in the statute that allowed those to continue in the Hickson area here that we have in Chattanooga. Red light cameras have also been at least limited dramatically here since that has occurred here. So most unmanned cameras are prohibited at this point in time. And I guess the question is involving how many cameras that are involved here. We need to know where they are location wise.
Sure. Blythe, if you can give us that, I think it would just be nice for people to know, because I get a lot of that question quite frequently. You know, people asking about the red light cameras, and I usually tell them there's one at the S curve. That's the only one that we have operational. Phil, I don't know. I don't want to bring in anybody from the police department to further this, but the tickets, how are they treated? If you get a ticket from this camera and let's say you decided not to pay it, what happens next? I mean, how does the enforcement part of this work?
There is I guess a ticket that is sent in the mail here to that property owner. I noticed that part of this comes through Kevin Comstock if there's some question with traffic here in the city, but the actual ticketing is occurring through this independent agency. That agency then provides that information to the property owner on here that had the ticket going on with it, and then that is then sent at some point in time to the court. There is no prosecution. It is not treated, as I remembered here, about any type of I guess fault type thing that might result in someone's I guess issues on taking their license away from them anyway in that regard. So that's what I understood the agreement required.
Okay, and I appreciate that because I know a lot of folks have had some issues with, I think, an out-of-state company having that kind of authority without it being local, and for a constituent or a taxpayer or whatever, a visitor driving through our city limits to be held to that kind of authority. So I know that that's been brought up many times with folks, and I appreciate you and Mr. Bailey just giving us a little bit of a rundown on the traffic camera. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, we're going to move to next week. We'll start with ordinances on first reading. 5A, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened right-of-way located on an old Longview Drive as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
I see no questions. Councilman Smith, you okay? Okay. B, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened right-of-way located on Scott Street as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Chair.
Councilman Byrd.
Yeah, Blythe, could you give me a little insight in on that, please?
Apologies, Councilman. I had muted myself. This is item
B.
Mm-hmm.
D as in David, right?
B is in boy. B is in Blythe.
B is in Bird.
B as in boy. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong. Okay, B, I see it. Jason Davis, Scott Street. Yes, this was recommended for approval by Planning Commission. This is an abandonment of an alley behind an existing business that's currently a dead end, Councilman, to facilitate that business expansion off of Riverside Drive near the rail yard.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You okay, Councilman?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, let's go to C.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a portion of the eastern right-of-way along the 1800 block of South Watkins Street as detailed in the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Byrd.
Yes, I would like to, Blythe, where did he go? There he is. And what are the conditions?
Oh my goodness, Councilman. I think I'm looking at, these are standard conditions, sir. That's why it surprised me. The standard conditions are if they're going to use this abandoned property for something, they are required to obtain the necessary permits. Mm-hmm. It's also subject to the dedication. After you all vote to approve an abandonment on second reading, that means that legislatively they can seek the dedication to be able to do something. And then there's a request for full width utility easement. That is also common for these abandonments because sometimes these abandonments do contain utilities. In this case, Tennessee American Water is specifically noted, but there may be other utilities. Typically, when there's an abandonment of a parcel abandonment like this, there's no intention to move any utilities. It's mostly a cleanup issue. So those are the three conditions that are listed in your memo, sir.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Make sure with nothing else. I appreciate it, Blythe, and thanks for pointing that out for me.
Sure, of course.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to D, E, and F. These all have to do with Lucy Boiler. What's going on over there? Go ahead and read them.
An ordinance closing and abandoning multiple right-of-ways, part of the 900 block of Bluff Street, part of the 700 block of Bluff Street, part of the 1300 block of Anderson Avenue, part of the 1300 block unnamed alley, and portions of right-of-way of the 1300 block of Anderson Avenue, as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions. E, an ordinance for the relocation of the unopened 700 and 800 blocks of Bluff Street right-of-ways, as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions. F, an ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened right-of-way along the 1300 block of Vance Avenue, as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Byrd.
I'm okay.
Oh, are you? Okay. Any questions about these three?
On the legal end, I have had a request from the attorney from the Lucy Boiler folks, at least regarding item E here. I believe it's MR 2020-133, to actually have a dedication of part of that property to them for development. That is one thing that at least they've requested a quick claim deed in connection with this. I'll provide y'all the language of this before next week, but I just wanted to make sure that was on the record. That's the only portion of that unopened right-of-way area. It's a small parcel that they are requesting in connection with this. And I think that would have to go through, since it's already gone through mandatory referral, some procedure for a quick claim to them if y'all are so willing.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Anything else for Blythe Bailey before we let him go and move on to Public Works?
Mr. Chairman, may I add those last three and maybe a little bit of extra commentary for what Mr. Nobles just indicated? That of course is a good, there's an exciting development happening. And I did want to point out, because a lot of times we are strict about abandonments, as you all know, because they can have future use for the community. In this case, this redevelopment is reconnecting street grids. So that's why we recommended approval. And in particular, the item that Mr. Nobbert is referring to was a request to move rather than abandon, because the development would be easier. If I understand, that might be an overgeneralization, but in general, they are providing connectivity through their site that approximates the current rights of way, which is why we recommended approval for all of those.
Councilperson Coonrod, welcome to the discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Blythe, I just had other for Blythe. I sent you an email. It's been 7 days now and I hadn't got a response. If you will please check your email and respond to it, please. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course, Councilwoman, I'm sorry that I may have missed that, but I will look for it now and make sure it's at the top of my inbox.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. All right, if there's nothing else from Mr. Bailey, we'll let him go. And are we bringing in Mr. Payne, or who are we bringing in for Public Works?
Yes, we have Mr. Payne raising his hand.
All right.
And he's on his way.
Well, while he's on his way, how about reading 6A?
All right.
Sweet.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 1 for Stephen Billingsley, DBA Billingsley Architecture, relative to contract number P18001-101, limited renovations at Police Annex for an increased amount of $19,411.81 for a revised contract amount of $55,811.81.
Okay, I see no hands. Let's go to B.
A resolution authorizing the Department of Public Works Fleet Division to apply for, and if awarded, accept a grant from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, Office of Energy Programs, to purchase medium and heavy-duty trucks powered by alternative fuels with the city's matching share in the amount of $319,079 for a total amount of $1,269,494.
Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's always amazing to me how that federal grants seem to find their way into our budget line items. Mr. Payne, could you tell me where the $319,000 is going to come from?
I'll be glad to, and also Eric Schmidt, the Director of Sustainability, has been working closely with our Fleet Director Gary Franks on this, and so certainly if you have other questions, I may ask for Mr. Schmidt to be able to come on board as well. He has some information about the grant and how it came to the city's knowledge and the source of those state funds, but the city's matching share would come from the fleet fund. I believe it's a combination of both some operating and some fleet capital dollars.
So I guess my question then is it additional dollars, or is this budgeted items that's already in the budget, currently in the budget? We're just repurposing or reallocating dollars in a different way.
Right. If I may, I think Justin Steinman from the Capital Planning Office can probably provide the best answer for that. If it's all right for him to come and answer that, because I don't want to. Thank you. There's a portion of this that, because of the speed with which the grant moved, it was there was quite a bit of it that moved ahead. So I appreciate that.
Seems like a lot of federal grants are pouring into us right now.
This one is, while Mr. Steinman is coming on board, this one is actually related to the Volkswagen emissions settlement. And so this, I believe, is money that flowed to the state from that settlement. It was part of Tennessee's portion of that share. So I believe there are some conditions. That's where Mr. Schmidt could provide some additional information about how this removes some diesel vehicles and provides alternative fuel vehicles in their place.
So I guess this is more of a state, I guess, from a Volkswagen settlement grant than a federal grant.
Right. I believe certainly the consent decree was a federal consent decree with Volkswagen, but those dollars have been distributed to the state level, I believe.
Okay.
Hello, Council. Just to quickly answer your all's question, as you all are aware, usually we don't budget in advance for grant matches typically. So sometimes when a grant opportunity comes along, it requires us to be kind of agile in trying to figure out how to fund that grant opportunity. So in this case, if the timeline, and Mr. Schmidt can speak to this a little more specifically, but we believe that the timeline for the grant will actually allow the funds to be budgeted in the FY22 capital budget. So you'll note that in the resolution request form, it does say subject to council approval in the upcoming budget. But also here, this would authorize in the interim use of fleet capital funds to cover that until the FY22 budget, if we need that match before the new budget is adopted.
Okay, so my original question, would this be additional dollars, or are we repurposing dollars already budgeted?
It will be new dollars.
So this would be an increase to our budget to cover the match. Okay.
Yes, sir. That's right.
All right. That answered my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's see. I believe it's Councilman Gilbert is next.
Yeah, I got a quick question. It's dealing with fleet trucks. I noticed that we are selling quite a few of our fleet trucks. Do we have a system set up to, when trucks get to a certain mileage, they go away? And is some of these trucks right here replacing the ones that we're putting on auction?
There is a vehicle replacement program. However, depending on the size and the use and utilization of those vehicles, some have longer service lives than others. I believe the vehicles that are in this list are larger. They are the medium and heavy duty trucks. And these are ones that have a lower mileage utilizations, but they still meet their functionality. And so this is their replacement actually will, as I understand it, will bring us a better value overall. But once those vehicles are ready to be replaced because they're no longer meet their utility, then they are surplused and sold through Compass.
And does that money goes back to the fleet that we receive from the sale?
Yes, that's my understanding. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Bill and then Justin on a follow-up. Bill, the alternative fuels, I'm assuming that's natural gas or electric. Is that?
Actually, in this case, it also includes propane.
Propane.
And again, Mr. Schmidt is available. It's my understanding this would be 1 electric, 2 compressed natural gas, and 4 propane.
Okay, and
So
the next question, Councilman Gilbert kind of already got ahead of me on. Are we selling, when we sell off the older diesel vehicles, can the cost or the sales price of that equipment be replenished? So when we're looking at $319,079, in my business, we're constantly replenishing new printing equipment by selling old equipment and using that either as a trade-in or using that to kind of offset in a special bucket set off to the side. Are we doing that with the city, and do we have any hopes to recuperate some of the $320,000 in the selling of our old vehicles to kind of, make this almost an upgraded wash, if you will, even over time?
And actually, typically that would be the case. However, in this case, because of the terms of the emissions settlement with Volkswagen, these vehicles do have to be removed from the road completely. And so, I know Mr. Schmidt certainly has more information available for those, but I believe the blocks have to have holes bored in them, and the chassis have to be cut in half. So they are fully decommissioned because they have to be able to come off the road as part of removing those emissions. Because that is what the settlement was about, was removing the emissions from the air and from the overall pathway. So reselling the vehicle would not remove those emissions.
Okay, so they're sold for scrap, basically.
Yes, it is. It is something. It is something that would be part of the cost of this grant and of the city's share. And so this is a 75-25% cost share.
Great. Last question. At some point, not today, not in this meeting, but can you share with us what the city's capabilities are for the refueling of natural gas, electric, or propane? I know how electric, but propane. I would like to know what we're doing as the city to be able to replenish the fuel, or if we're buying that from a different distributor, if we're doing that through a private business, or do we have the infrastructure in our public works department to handle additional propane powered or natural gas compressed vehicles? That'd be something I think would be really interesting to know what our capabilities and what our infrastructure level is now.
All right, certainly. And
that can be offline.
Okay. Mr. Schmidt is available, and he can provide answers to some of that now, because I know it is salient to the grant. And we're certainly prepared to do that. If the council would care to hear from Mr. Schmidt on that today. He is available and prepared.
I will leave that up to my colleagues if they would like to know more about this.
I got you, Councilman.
I'm good, sir.
Well, those are very good questions. Pretty hands-on, but very good questions. Councilperson Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Justin Steinman, your answer was a little unclear to me, so let me make sure I've got this right. It had to do with Chairman Henderson's question. Did I hear you say that we were earmarking money in the present budget, should we need it, but that actually, and I'm talking about for the federal grant, but that actually it would probably hit next year's budget. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. We do believe that time-wise it will. We just wanted to identify a current funding source in the event it did not.
Right. And that's what I heard. And you said that it would be readjusting monies in the capital budget or in public works, wherever that is, but under capital, should we need it. Is that
yes, ma'am?
correct?
From one of the cost centers that is associated with fleet vehicle replacement.
So you didn't mean to tell him it was new money, I don't think.
Well, correct. I mean, we will. The anticipation is that it will be requested in the FY22 budget to replenish those funds.
Sure, but right now you're not talking about new money for what it's reallocating on paper, at least should we need it, money that's in the current budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Gilbert.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard Mr. Payne correctly. Did you say that the fleet that we are selling will be sold as scrap? Or did I hear that wrong?
These particular trucks would have to be sold that way as part of the terms of the grant.
So,
because the reason for that is because the emission settlement that Volkswagen where Volkswagen provided this money, the EPA and the Department of Justice required that there be an emissions reduction from diesel vehicles to offset the emissions that were illegally discharged by the Volkswagen diesels. So in this case, the money that's being provided is coming from the federal government to the state, and it does come with a requirement that the diesel vehicles that are being replaced must be decommissioned. Typically, that would not be the case, but for this specific grant, that they must be decommissioned, but typically they would not be.
okay. I'm just curious. I won't hold up anything, but the trucks that we're selling, you know the number in the trucks that we're selling versus the one we're going to purchase? The serial numbers on these trucks?
I don't have those, but we certainly have identified those vehicles. Certainly, they've been identified already because that's part of the grant application was to provide the age, mileage, and year, make, model, et cetera, of those specific vehicles.
Okay, just whenever you get a chance, I'd like to see that. I appreciate it.
Certainly, we'll get that over to you.
And Councilman, I believe that Mr. Schmidt's presentation does have all of the information within it if upon looking at it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I see no more hands. Any more questions for Mr. Payne before we let him go? Are you finished? Well, first, let me ask, are we finished with Mr. Stein? If so, we can let you go. Thank you, Justin. Any more questions for Mr. Payne? Councilperson Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Payne, is it Public Works that's responsible for the erosion, or is it another department? We've got that erosion that happened from the heavy winds on the outside of the Wilcox Tunnel. And I see that they've done some hydro seeding there. Is there anything else that's going to be done for that site? Because it's quite an eyesore. And then also on Brainerd Road, that's been an eyesore for many, many years, that it was never fixed when we received the FEMA funds for that location on Brainerd Road. And it's getting worse and worse every year. And that erosion there, and it's kind of done eased back closer to the houses that sit there. So want to know what's going to be done. If it was happening in any other area, North Shore, anywhere that's kind of thriving more so, I believe that these areas would have been fixed. Again, I want to say these parts of District 9 are not in poverty in these areas. They are contributing to the tax base, and it is not categorized as an inner city communities. And I would like to know why that this area on Brainerd Road and also on why these areas continue to be neglected. We've received FEMA funds from both events, from the windstorm and from the tornado. Previously, I asked, what did we do with those funds? I was told someone was going to send me a report about what happened because we claimed that we didn't get the funds, but someone else, the department, said we did. And it looks nasty. And I mean, I just want to know, what are the next steps? I mean, is there another department that I need to reach out to so we can get it taken care of?
Certainly, Councilwoman. I heard you mention erosion outside the Wilcox Tunnel. The other location on Brainerd Road, what specific section of Brainerd Road?
It's kind of, when you come out the Brainerd Tunnel, it's probably like the second block. You will see like a little alternator shop or mechanic shop there. And it's right across from the gas station. You can't miss it. It's like a mudslide, darn it. It's getting worse. And I don't know if you guys put some replacement trees and that kind of stuff, but maybe hydro seed that area as well. But I'm growing concerned.
Certainly, I'll be glad to take. I'll be glad to take a look at those. However, the only things that the city can do are things that are on city property or inside the right of way. And I do know that sometimes things are on private property, and the city's ability to be able to go in there is limited in some cases. But I'll certainly be glad to check on those two locations. I'm not aware of anything specific, but I'll follow up with Mr. Bailey in transportation as well as others to determine, and Mr. Steinman, about any FEMA, any additional FEMA funding as well. But I'm not aware of any projects that the city has or that those are city on city property to my knowledge. But I'll certainly be glad to follow up with those.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Certainly.
Thank you, Councilperson. And thank you for bringing up North Shore. Any publicity is good publicity. Thank you very much. All right, anything else from Mr. Payne? If not, we can let him go and we can move on to our, well, at least temporarily we'll let him go. We might have him back a little bit if there are some questions, any more questions about Wilcox Tunnel. Or you wanted to start with Wilcox Tunnel while we got Mr. Payne? I think Mr. Payne and Mr. Bailey might be participating in something about Wilcox Tunnel. I believe Councilman Gilbert, you brought this subject up.
Well, yes, sir. I was bringing it up because we spent so much money on the lining of that tunnel, and for it to start coming down, that's a problem. As Councilwoman Coonrod just mentioned, that it's like an eyesore. I don't want to see what it used to be, a lot of water in that tunnel that caused a lot of problems. What are we going to do to keep it from tearing the rest of the way down? What do we need to do do we need to put a camera in that tunnel to see who is actually tearing it down for us? If it's a truck, transfer truck or whatever, that we can start making them pay for the damage. I'm just trying to get an understanding on that.
Mr. Payne, is it you or would it be Mr. Bailey on that question?
I believe it's primarily Mr. Bailey. Public Works certainly provides some support, and we do some cleaning and maintenance. But the overall questions, I think Mr. Bailey can better answer.
We let him get away once. Have we got him back?
He's coming back.
He didn't even change his clothes. Okay, Mr. Bailey. Did you hear those questions?
I did, and I heard Mr. Payne and I did talk about this issue yesterday, and yeah, I do think we share in some responsibility for maintenance, but I think we're in the lead on the questions that Councilman Gilbert asked. Firstly, there are a couple of things I've talked about with Councilman Gilbert. I know Councilman Coonrod also has been very interested in the long-term maintenance of the tunnel. We have developed a maintenance plan that basically calls for a twice per year cleaning. The cleaning, to respond to one of Councilman Gilbert's questions specifically, I did discuss with Mr. Payne yesterday. The cleaning specification from the manufacturer of the liner specifically calls for soft bristle brush, because an abrasive hard brush can compromise the integrity of the liner. We have made that specification and are not using. We are using a soft bristle brush in our cleaning. That is not called. There's no connection between any loss of the membrane and the cleaning specification. I did confirm also with Councilman Gilbert and my staff. You all may know that yesterday we had an unplanned closure because a large piece of the liner fell from the tunnel. That caused me concern at the same level that Councilman Gilbert just articulated, that there might be some sort of physical issue with the membrane or the liner or the water. As you all know, concrete is a porous material that does allow some water intrusion. So my first worry was that there was a problem that was fundamental to either the product or the way that it was applied. My staff assures me that that was not the case based on their observation. It is clear that there was an object that collided with the liner. You all know that has happened since well before we invested in the renovation of the tunnel. Sometimes large vehicles don't heed our warning. You all know that we have a post out there with an arm that sticks out over the roadway that is intended to warn tall vehicles that they don't have clearance. And yet for decades, we still experience, unfortunately, drivers going through the tunnel anyway, and the corners of high vehicles will collide. And that appears to be what happened. Now, we don't have any video evidence of that happening, so we can't hold anyone responsible for that damage. But so in that sense, that's unfortunate, but I am relieved that it does not appear to be an issue associated with the physics of the soil above the tunnel or anything like that. I'll stop there. I do think that answers the most recent questions, and we don't expect any other issues from the tunnel based on, we went out there immediately. Our engineer and our engineering manager were out there immediately. I believe that Mr. Payne's crews, I believe that Mr. Colston went to the site as well. So we gave it immediate attention to make sure that it was safe for everybody. And that's what we do as always with any of our major structures, whether they be bridges or the one tunnel that we are responsible for, or slopes or anything else.
Does that answer your questions, RG?
Well, one more question. The liner that did fall, how are we going to repair it? Are we going to speak with that company again about repairing it, or are we going to do what for as repairing that, and also what can we do to ensure that in the future any vehicle comes through there? Do we need to put a camera somewhere that will show that they're tearing this down, so make them responsible to fixing what they tear down?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'll do. I think that's a good suggestion, Councilman. I think I'll address. I think there's two questions there I'll address. The second one, I would love to be able to hold the offending party responsible for the damage to the city infrastructure. There's a little bit of cost benefit there. Let me do some research and find out what it would take to have a camera, and also speak with the city attorney to make sure that that would actually yield something that we could hold somebody responsible for. So I will gladly follow up with both my staff as well as the city attorney to see if that's something that would help us in the future. Hold these drivers responsible if that's indeed what we can do. Second question, back to the first question you asked. As you know, and as I mentioned, unfortunately, we do have this situation occur. We don't want. we think if there's evidence that there are certain locations, which there is, if you go look at the tunnel, it's generally a consistent location where tall vehicles are colliding with the surface. We would not want to go back with a membrane because it's just inevitable that that same thing would happen. Number one. Number two, the membrane was intended to help with water intrusion, but not be 100% water impenetrable. We did not advertise that this thing would be water free. It's, you know, as you know, it's concrete. There's a significant amount of soil above it. It is inevitable, and you want water to be able to come through the tunnel. So we never thought that the liner would be totally waterproof. So in the locations where the liner has been removed by a vehicle, what we propose to do is paint the surface when it's finished. And we will use probably a blanket. I also discussed that with Mr. Payne yesterday. We probably got at this point enough locations where it makes sense to go do that. And I'll instruct my staff to start looking at our, we have a blanket contract for an industrial painter that we believe could take care of that repair for us.
And this would be waterproof paint that would hopefully keep much water as possible.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you had asked that question a couple of days ago. I still think that's an idea worth looking into, but I do want to be careful that we don't trap water in a dangerous way behind the tunnel. So I'm going to ask our engineer to look at that, and also the painting experts, and we'll make sure we use the right product, whether it's waterproof or I'm sorry for my dogs, whether it's waterproof or porous, Councilman.
All right, thank you.
I got one of those too, Blythe. I understand. I'm trying to keep him quiet. Councilperson Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Blythe, thank you for answering the question. And again, this tunnel sits in between what many say are two inner city communities. I disagree with that. But coming from Avondale to the Eastdale side, or Eastdale side to the Avondale side, it seems as if it is neglected. And to my understanding that everything that you were supposed to do when the tunnel closed, with fixing the tunnel or whatever, it didn't get completed. But it also was saying that you all will be responsible for the ongoing maintenance of the tunnel. So every 3 months when you close a tunnel down, like, doesn't that include like fixing the lining and all of that stuff? This has been going on for over a year since it's been peeling, or, you know, the trucks have been, you know, scraping up against the wall. But all you guys do is go in and kind of spray down, pick up some litter, and then that's it. We're not asking to just be pacified. We're asking for it to be fixed. And again, it's like we have to beg time and time again, or we're lied to, we don't have the money, or we don't have this, or we don't have that. But I guarantee you, when it's another area that you all consider that's depositing more money into the system, then you hurriedly go and you fix it. But I guarantee you that in both of these communities, they're working class citizens that pay taxes too. And we're just asking for some attention to be paid for, and to get it done. Like, I hear you saying that it's going to be paint, but I don't want it just to be no patch over job, because that seems to be what's happening. I don't know if you're aware or not, but both of these communities are changing. They're not predominantly Black, is what I'm getting to. So therefore, they shouldn't be neglected. It shouldn't be neglected if it still was all Black, or if it's a mixture of people. You still should have the same attention to these issues. And it's just getting out of hand. Don't want you to feel like I'm dumping it on you, Blythe. But my next concern is that back in 2018, it was a plan, the project for considered 2045 by the RTP project ID number 64, which is currently for the 2026 to 2035 tier, which was saying to construct the tunnel, the Wilcox Tunnel. Is that still a part of the plan? It also said that it was contingent on the sponsor, which is the city of Chattanooga, providing matching funds to make sure. So this the holdup is the city of Chattanooga not providing their matching funds. And the project also included additional lanes via a new tube through Missionary Ridge to offset the traffic while you're fixing the Wilcox Tunnel. Now, is that project still being moving forward, or is that something that's just been, again, it's not a concern, it's not an issue right now? Like, where are we at with that project?
Councilwoman, I think I'd have to review the long-range transportation plan. There are dozens and dozens of projects in the RTP. And that the RTP is, if I recall correctly, there's 3 tiers. I think you referenced I believe there's a 20, at this point, probably a 25, a 35, and 45. And they update that, the Transportation Planning Organization, which is staffed by our planners at the RPA, update that plan every so often. I want to say every 3 years. The long range plan may be updated every 5 years, but that plan basically identifies projects that are eligible for federal funding that, as they move forward, can be programmed. I will say, I know you said you're not dumping this on me, but I take very seriously everything you just said, and I can't. All I can say is the efforts that the mayor has put forward, and that he has asked me to do, and that I have done. I'll continue to try to do more. I definitely don't think that we have. I think we have given the tunnel a considerable amount of attention. There are other facilities and pieces of infrastructure elsewhere in the city that are also struggling. So I'm not sure how to respond to all of your concerns, other than to keep working on it. It is the only tunnel that the city of Chattanooga is responsible for. We invested a major amount of money, and you're right. We do maintain that tunnel regularly, and have. I think the locations that have been collided with vehicles, I'll take responsibility. We probably should have addressed those sooner, but now that has happened repeatedly, we'll make the right approach and make sure that it's fixed.
Thank you, Blythe. I appreciate it.
Thank you, councilperson. You know, this is the second conversation we've had about we don't have any cameras. One was in Coolidge Park a while back, and now the tunnel. And is there anybody? I don't, probably not Mr. Bailey or Mr. Payne. I don't know if we have anybody at the city, but is there anyone addressing the need for security cameras, basically helping us protect our assets in the city of Chattanooga? Crickets. I don't see anyone raising their hands. I don't see anybody trying anything. Okay, well, I guess the answer is no. All right, thank you, Mr. Payne and Mr. Bailey. We'll now move on to, well, we're going to move on to a litter policy, but I have not received anything in writing. I'm told that it's coming to us very soon. So if it's okay with the council, I'd like to move that discussion to 2 weeks from today in the next Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. How do you feel about that, Councilperson Burris?
Sure, I'm with you. I support that.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for that, which leaves the scooter ordinance. And we have something from the attorney, but before we just start diving into that, I'm going to sort of ask the council what's its pleasure on this discussion about docked scooters. If there is no one wanting to speak up, let me ask a question. Would you like to go over the proposed ordinance that Mr. Noblet has given us? Or would you just like to say we're not interested at all? I know that's pretty opposing views. Is there somewhere in the middle we can meet with that? But okay, Chairman Henderson, you took the bait.
Well, I'm going to try to help you out, sir. You seem like you're between a rock and a hard place there, and I've been in that situation. And I guess my concern about this piece of legislation is, and maybe I'm missing it somewhere. I don't see much difference between docked scooters and dockless scooters. other than the fact that maybe we won't find the docked scooters laying all over the sidewalks like we might find the dockless. But I think as far as I'm concerned, I would still have the same concerns about the safety as I had with the dockless scooters. I did miss the presentation of the dock scooters. I was out that particular meeting. Didn't get to hear a lot of the input that maybe other council had, but I guess one of my main questions would be, as far as safety concerns, what would be the big difference? I certainly would not want docked scooters to be able to be ridden down city sidewalks. I think they should have to be on the streets if this ordinance is voted on and happens to go through. I'm going to leave it at that and see if we can maybe generate a little bit of discussion from those comments.
All right, that's, at least we got it opened up. Thank you very much for your help. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to keep it really quite simple. After what I just heard about the infrastructure issues, projects that need attention, I really don't know why we would add this to CDOT's list of things to do when it has not been identified as a major problem in this city. We have so many other things we need to be focused on our attention on. And I think that was made very clear just a moment ago. And why we want to open up this can of worms, I don't understand. This doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Very loud and clear. Anyone else? Well, we're in a public meeting. I would be willing to entertain a motion to end this discussion with no action.
You do have a hand by Councilman Gilbert, sir.
Oh, I see that now. Thank you. You're pretty good at this. Councilman Gilbert.
I got a question for Blight. Blight, is it a possibility? I think I did hear from UTC, some students, that they would like to see something like this. Is it a possibility just to do in that particular area to see how it works? Or we have to go through the whole entire city or all downtown for the scooters?
It's not feasible, Councilman. It's a little bit of both. It depends on the area. What we were considering doing was adding a small number of vehicles as a pilot to our docked bicycle transit system, which includes, I believe, 37 docking stations, the majority of which are in District 7. Some are in District 8. I believe one or two are in District 9. And then there are 2 or 3 across the river, maybe one in District 1 and a couple of District 2. So we don't have a way to, they would be in those locations, Councilman, which would be probably broader than what you've got in mind, but would be limited to the reasonable area around the docking station.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I guess I'm going to ask the obvious question. I personally have read over this and I see some problems with it. I think a couple of places we probably go further than what state law requires us to do, and I would not be in favor of that. But I don't think we can even get that discussion going, it seems, but I'm supposed to ask the question, are we ready to put this on the agenda, I guess?
Councilman, I'm not sure that it is ready to actually hit our agenda in a way that we can vote on it.
And that's a great comment. What would you suggest it needs to try to move it forward if that's the desire of any of the council?
We may need just a whole working session on that during strategic planning. where we look at this ordinance as it's written. I've not heard at this point a lot from any other council members, except Councilman Ledford weighed in on it. If no one really has a big desire to bring this forward, I think we just let it die here.
All right, thank you. Councilperson Burrs.
That's what I was gonna say.
You were?
Yeah, so he
How
spoke
did
for
he know
me.
that? How did he
Yeah.
know?
I don't know. Don't get used to it, Chip. But
I've got the ESPN.
Yes.
Okay, is it the consensus of the council that we, let's say, put this proposed ordinance on the table and let it lie?
Good with me, Councilman.
Works for me.
Sure.
Did you say let it die, Councilman, or let it lie?
Use your own word.
All right, so,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question, sir?
Are you speaking to the Public Works and Transportation Chair?
Yes.
Or the chair?
You.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
And this may be more for Blythe. Seeing that this council is not interested in moving forward with legislation that would allow specifically docked scooters, does that give clear direction to Mr. Bailey to not proceed with the pilot program, knowing that he doesn't exactly need our permission since there is nothing in legislation expressly prohibiting docked scooters? I think we should be clear to Mr. Bailey as to which direction we would prefer that to go.
Well, in that, Mr. Attorney, I'm going to ask you for some help here. What should be the direction? I'm not totally clear that Mr. Bailey, I believe Councilman Smith probably is right, that he doesn't really need our permission. But he obviously bringing it to us would like it. And I think he's tried to work with us in every way possible. So where are we, Mr. Attorney?
Well, I did this at your instruction and Ms. Burr's instruction, at least wanting to at least have some type of ordinance.
Right.
The reason that you need an ordinance is that if you are going to say that something is allowed, then you need to establish what is allowed and what isn't. We have attempted in this ordinance to at least provide for a pilot program if that's what you want to do for a specific time frame. And it actually had an ending date here through May the 30th of 2021. And it would actually say some things are allowed and some are not. There was concern initially on the aspect of whether these would be driven on the sidewalks or not. The state law is clear as to electric bicycles. It's not quite so clear as to scooters. There are concerns about helmets, whether helmets should or should not be ridden with these devices. State law is not really very helpful one way or the other on some of these issues. The provisions that are included in this proposal, at least for an ordinance, is what Knoxville currently has in effect in their pilot program as well for docked scooters up there. So that's one of the issues that was considered. But I mean, it's up to this body to adopt an ordinance. If you have a program that is submitted by Mr. Bailey for allowing a docked scooter program and y'all do not want that to occur, you can clearly prohibit that.
All right, thank you. Councilperson Burrs.
I think there are two issues there. Councilman Smith brought up the dockless scooter. So we have in abeyance the dockless scooter issue because for some reason we didn't add the word docked scooters. So Mr. Bailey has never had clear direction. And so I think it's up to us now to decide either we want them or we don't want them. If we want them, then what Phil said goes into effect. So I don't think you got a direct answer. So I'm asking that we make some decision. Either we want the scooters or we don't want the scooters. Right now, as I understand it, we've got a moratorium on dockless scooters, whatever that means. And we have nothing on dock scooters. I think we're brighter than that. We ought to just address the issue of scooters, and either we want them or we don't in the downtown area. And I think I want to listen to my colleagues for direction from the downtown area where they are for what your preference is. And then I'll follow suit.
All right, I'll entertain a motion, but I don't see his hand going up from the downtown area. So I'm not sure he wants to participate. Okay, yes, Councilperson Oglesby. You're muted. You are muted.
You're making a lot of great points. We just can't hear them.
He still doesn't want to participate.
We're sure they're
Man,
great.
that was the whole best part of what I had to say.
That is the best I've ever heard.
Yeah.
All right.
I won based on, we talked about having a time limit on seeing if they will work or not. I understand and support the safety concerns that that each of my council person that have made that statement. The other thing that comes to mind for me is when we start talking about rules for usage of these scooters, we got to start looking at the fact that we having more and more private scooters coming into our city. So if we regulate the safety on one, I just think it needs to be a regulation on both, because you can't say that you cannot wear helmets on the dock scooters and then you can't wear helmets on your private scooter. It sends a mixed message. I, for one, would not have a problem with that. The dock scooters in District 7 just as a trial. And I just go with the pleasure of the council, seeing the fact that Mr. Bailey could have, and we had this conversation, he could have easily have just agreed to, with the company to bring them in. But in my conversation with him, I said, because of the discussions we had with the doctor scooter, I thought it would be best if, we bring it to the council to make sure that there's some sort of a consensus on which way we need to go. So I, for one, on a trial basis, wouldn't necessarily have a problem. I don't know if we can really stop it unless we create an ordinance banning dock scooter. Got to get this dock scooter. So that's where I stand on it. But one way or another, we're going to need some sort of statements about the safety part of it, whether you have dock scooters or you have your personal scooters, which we could run into the same issues.
All right, thank you. I'm still open for a motion.
What the motion, whether we move forward or not? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, it could be that. It could be a motion to move forward, and then we could put a discussion of this proposed ordinance in a strategic planning meeting, or it could be a motion to, let's just drop it. It could be whatever you prefer.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question before we go further?
Absolutely.
Mr. Bailey, I'm not sure he answered Council or Vice Chair Smith's question about would he move forward in the sense that he didn't have to bring this to us. If we took no action, Mr. Bailey, would you move forward with bringing in docked scooters?
Mr. Chairman, you used your ESPN again. I was wanting to answer that question. I appreciate the way you asked me. I would not be moving forward. I did say when I first brought this to your attention that we're not, CDOT nor is Shift interested in doing something unless there's some affirmation from the council. So if this gets dropped, we don't plan to put scooters into our dock system. In other words, I don't think there's a need to pass a law that says we can't. We don't intend to if you drop it at this point.
And it was my understanding that you can't do a pilot just in a particular or detailed location. It would have to be in all the areas that we have the dock capability, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we just table this discussion.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
And I believe I heard 2 seconds on that. So we have a motion and a second on tabling the discussion. All those in
Yeah.
favor say aye.
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 Do we need to do a roll call, Mr. Attorney?
This is a consensus vote, Mr. Attorney. We
Okay,
don't-
I didn't hear a consensus. That's why I'm asking that.
Oh, okay.
Let me say opposed, or is there anyone opposed to tabling this? I am.
Oh,
Then you probably need a roll call then.
All right. I wanted one of those. You're all going to speak at some
why
point.
didn't you just say you wanted a roll call?
Well, everybody's going to speak at some point.
Okay.
Councilman,
I got my hand up. Or you just want us to jump in?
Oh, well, okay. All right. Now, let me do this first. Councilperson Oglesby, is that an old hand?
That's an old hand, sir.
Okay, so Councilperson
I
Coons.
just dropped it.
Thank you, Chair. Like I get the concerns, but Councilman Oglesby, he said, you know, he wouldn't mind them being as a pilot. And we just heard, you know, Councilwoman say that she will support that if that's what a colleague wants. It's the downtown people, if that's is their district. It's not gonna be in our district. I would love for them to be in District 9. With Blythe, can you put them in my district? I mean, it's the thing, and I get the concerns, and right now, like it's the trendy urban type of transportation that people participate in when they go to these cities that have a vibrant downtown, and people ride the scooters to different places. It's all kind of things that's downtown and other cities to do. This gives us something to attract people to come to that they'll like to do. Now, I think that we need to, if it's decided on to do a pilot, then in 6 months, if we say we don't want them, then okay, that's cool, but at least we tried it. It makes no sense to table it if the consensus is that we really don't want it. If we don't want it, just say we don't want it so Blythe can move on, and instead of just having it lingering out with the possibility or we may bring it back. But I think that if Councilman Oglesby, if he's okay with it, then that's something that I most definitely want to support. I don't want him changing out his mind about how he feels about his district to accommodate opposing views. So if the downtown council people want it, I support that. If not, then we just need to vote it down and move on.
All right, we got another hand. We got 2 more hands. Councilperson Oglesby.
Yeah, I'll yield this one to Councilman Byrd, because he hadn't spoken on it yet, and I'll follow him.
And he looks like he really does want to speak. So go ahead, Councilperson.
Yeah, he's got that look.
Thank you so much. I just don't, I'm not for it. Really haven't been sold on it. I think we have a lot of ordinance and things in place right now that we can't regulate, that we can't put our teeth in. We're trying to get our city structurally moving in a better direction with COVID, with us getting ready to move into another administration, probably a new council. I just think right now, scooters are the least we need to be worried about. Our city has a lot of issues at hand right now. And I haven't had an overwhelming response to saying that, hey, Councilman Byrd, we want these scooters here. So I feel maybe if we did table it and my constituents would call, email, or reach out to me to let me know that this is something that they want, because I do have part of downtown, I would definitely move in that direction. But just right now, our world, our city is in a different place. And I think we should first figure out how to regulate and make the law stick and let people know they have to obey the law, and give our officers the tools they need to work with to make sure that people are obeying the law. And we need to write that out clearly before we start to bring things in. And this will be just for the public at hand that choose to buy a scooter. And I don't see a lot of people in Chattanooga riding around on scooters at this point in time. So that's why I'm at. I'm just not for it right now. Thank you.
That was worth the wait. Thank you. Thank you. Councilperson Oglesby.
Yeah, it was. So I believe what I just heard from Blight is that the company no longer is interested in putting the scooters in my district. Is that what I'm hearing?
Given that there's not affirmation from the council that you want to see it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're trying to figure that out right now. All right, so now can we proceed to our roll call? And by the way, the motion is we table this issue. So a yes would be to table, a no would be to not table. Is that correct, Chair Henderson?
That is correct, sir.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
No.
Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
No.
Councilman Oglesby,
No.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
All right, it is tabled. Thank you very much for your participation, council. Lively as usual. Is there anybody that has anything else? Is that an old hand, Councilman Oglesby?
Yes, it is.
Okay, is there anybody that has anything else for Public Works and Transportation? Councilman Gilbert?
Yes, sir. And I don't know if this is on the transportation or not, but I'm gonna shoot for it. I've been getting email from nonprofits about the bid that they are still in the same place they were when they first started. And I thought that when they came and gave a presentation that the nonprofit on board. So I would like, hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, to ask them to come back to us and to discuss the nonprofits.
You know, well, okay, I'll go first. I've got a comment, but I'm going to wait for Councilperson Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was my understanding from the letter from Mr. Hunt that there was a deal, so to speak, presented that they would pay a 10%. That was the agreement that I believe the YMCA and the churches had put in. I know there's a parking lot property that's still probably in dispute, but it was my understanding that the nonprofits, United Way and YMCA, that deal was struck and it was approved by their board. There is, I think, still an issue with the church parking lot, but that was my understanding, and that was from not only the Times Free Press, but also from the letter that Mr. Hunt had sent us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I don't see any more hands, so I'll add to this. I've received emails also that says that the deal is not done from a nonprofit organization and a church. So I would like to, and you know what, when I voted for this, I was like, now let them run it and let's try to stay out of it. But with something like that, you're getting, and it's still early on in the process, and I think probably some ironing out still going on. I think I'd like to have that discussion also on Councilman Gilbert's suggestion. And I guess I'd lean on the chair to figure out when we could do that. Unless I get beat again in a vote.
I'm with you. I'm with you on this one, Councilman.
So can we set a time? I mean, a time, but a date. I know we got a lot on the agenda this coming week, was coming Tuesday, and I don't know what the following week look like, or the week after that. But Chair, you do. So can you set that tone?
I think this would be something that would maybe be better in strategic planning.
Okay.
Maybe we could set it up for December 1st. I don't think we have anything that far out as of yet.
Okay.
Sounds great.
And it is something I need to get Mr. Hunt to come and.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Mr. Chair, that we get Mr. Hunt to come and address those concerns.
Okay, very well.
All right, I see a hand from, thank you, Mr. Chair. I see a hand from Councilperson Coonrod.
I'm just curious, the representatives that share downtown, the bid, have they received any emails from anybody? Or are they not aware that you're the council representative? They emailing everybody else, except for you two?
Yeah, I couldn't get to raise my hand if I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I believe that it'd be best to get Mr. Hunt in here to discuss that with us. That's the best avenue to take right now, as serving as the chair of the board and primary, involved in the direct negotiation through the finance committee. So I believe getting Mr. Hunt in to speak on it would be the best move to take right now.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anything else for Public Works and Transportation? It's 5:05 on my clock, and I believe we've got public safety coming up after this, don't we?
We do, sir.
All right, I see no hands. We're going to adjourn Public Works and Transportation and move into public safety. Thank you, Councilman Byrd.
Hey, thank you so much. Welcome to Tuesday, November the 10th, 2020 Public Safety Committee meeting. May I have a minute approval, please?
Move to approve.
Thank you so much. Today we will.
Mr. Chair, can we take Mr. Bailey?
Oh, yes.
Let him give him a merciful departure.
Yeah, sorry about that. See you, Mr. Bailey. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you so much. Okay, and Miss Lydia, could you bring the fire chief in, please?
Yes, sir.
Today we'll be getting an overview of fire pay and hopefully all things associated with that, and get a better understanding of what's going on. We had a conversation here where we was updated on the morale and some things that are going on with the fire department. And Chief, I see you're here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you, Council, for having me.
Thank you. And at this point, Maura or Daisy, do anyone need to be in as well? Do you see anyone hand, Miss Lydia?
Not seeing any hands.
Okay. Well, Chief, the floor is yours.
Okay. I would just want to entertain any questions that council has about our current pay plan and the current status. Any specific things that the council would like to hear, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay. Well, right now we have a hand, Councilman Gilbert.
Yes, Chief, I'm curious, what is the best pay? What is the base pay for firefighters?
The base pay is $33,093.
Give me the dollars and cents for is it, I think the question I've been hearing was they are they're in the same situation as we gave 500 people a raise or a bump due to the federal poverty level. Is any of your money or any of your dollars and cents in that category? Is it $10? Is it $12? What is their base?
Okay, and that has created some confusion. So our base pay is $33,093. And just to kind of clear it up, the federal poverty rate is based on a 40-hour work week. Our firefighters, and that 40-hour work week is about 2,080 hours per year. Our firefighters work shift work, and they work about 3,120 hours a year, which is a little over 1,000 more hours than the 40-hour federal poverty rate. So if you break that $33,000 down over that length of hours in a year, it puts about 91 of our firefighters making less than that $1,260 mark. Does that make sense?
So they're making how much less?
I have some of our starting firefighters, their hourly, even though we don't really go by the hourly rate is $10.59. And in that group, I have about 91 firefighters that are just under that $1,260 mark. But they do have a salary of $33,000. And that's what's different with the federal poverty rate and hourly wage, is that we're not figured on that same thing. But if you stretch the hours out, that's what the argument is from a lot of the firefighters.
And this, Kurt, can I ask another question from our lawyer?
Yes, you can, sir.
Phil, help me understand if their dollar amount is 1059 and the federal poverty rate saying that it's 12 something, does that 12 equal in other cities or other professions? Does it go up to 30-something thousand, or is a cap there somewhere?
I think the problem is it's an apples and oranges aspect here of the 40-hour work week. And that is a specific change due to firefighters having to spend the night or longer shifts in facilities here in connection with their work. That is why there is not the same type of requirement here under the Fair Labor Standards Act for firefighters as there would be for your folks that are working in public works or in other facilities within the city. There is also a similar difference for law enforcement officers as well out there, that they have a different schedule under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And the Congress, whenever they were adopting those regulations, made those exceptions in the law. The aspect of just an hourly rate pay is not how your firefighters are paid. That's the problem.
So you're saying the Fair Labor Act from the federal?
Yes, sir.
So just for an example, I know that the firefighters don't get Social Security, they get their pension. So are they exempt from this when it comes to the federal fair labor law?
The Fair Labor Standards Act has a specific amount of hours that firefighters have to work before they can get overtime during a month on here. Same difference with police officers, and that is different than your normal hourly labored employees.
Yeah, I understand that part, but I'm asking, is the intent when they made this labor, was the intent that the firefighters would not be under the same guidance as other, when they made this out for the federal labor amount of money they put into place, $12 and some cents?
Yes, sir. I think it was separate in that regard whenever it was initially created. Now, the federal poverty guidelines that we're seeing in recent times are something that was not in effect whenever the Fair Labor Standards Act was initially adopted either. So that's another thing that's being thrown out.
Okay, so your opinion that if they do might work X amount of more hours, but they should not receive the additional amount of money, the $12 some cents, since they're at the below level of $10.59 or $10 and some cents?
I think it's an apples and oranges question. Now, the issue for you as a council member and in establishing a budget is trying to make sure you can maintain folks that are willing to put out fires at the rate of pay that they are receiving in their jobs. And you have to look at that as to whether that is a level of pay that is fair in the community that we have around us. And I guess the chief needs to tell you, are you having problems being able to get people based upon the rate of pay?
So the amount of money they work at that fire hall per hour is around $10 an hour.
Well, like I said before, I have 91 firefighters that are under that 1260 mark. But again, it's apples to oranges. It's more importantly about that base pay and eventually trying to raise that base pay up. And I think that's where the big focus needs to go. I mean, the mayor supported our pay plan up to this point, and unfortunately, due to COVID, had to suspend or freeze our pay plan right now. And that's really causing part of the rub. And we understand that revenues are down and that COVID has really affected things across the board. But I think the focus should be less on the hourly rate and the focus more shifted towards firefighter base pay moving forward in the next iteration of this pay plan. And that's what we're prepared to do. Is we were scheduled, as you know, we had the civilian compensation study done. And unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of that wasn't able to be funded. And our pay plan was due next to be reviewed by the Gallagher Group and internally. And we've also done our internal studies. And really, the focus should be from here moving forward on the next iteration of the pay plan with a focus on firefighter base pay. And that's what I'm fighting for and what we're trying to do in this next iteration.
I do know, I remember asking the pension person that's over your pension, if we had another situation in 2008, which we are, I think we're in that same situation now, are we prepared for this?
I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of what the pension says, as far as that's concerned, on what they can handle when 2008 hit. I don't think I'm prepared to answer that question. That would have to be something directly from the pension board. But looking at firefighter base pay is important to us, and raising that salary up across the board, because that's my hurdle. As I told council a number of weeks ago, we were trying to hire an academy, and I was doing a modified academy to be able to get some folks in here and kind of have a stopgap to keep our staffing numbers up. Unfortunately, that project has failed. I'm only able to hire maybe 5. We had over 2,800 applicants looking to get hired on it at the city of Chattanooga, and I have whittled it down all the way to 3. So the modified academy approach hasn't really worked, and I'm not going to do it again because of that. So to help stop, and I thought that was going to be a stopgap. Mayor Burr cautioned me that Chief Fletcher had tried this and it didn't work out for him, and he let me try it, and I own that failure. It's just the applicants' main problem coming here was that firefighter base pay, and we've proved that through the number of folks that we actually have in this modified academy. And so to me, it's important for us moving forward in the next iteration of this pay plan is to get us to more competitive pay. And we've looked at it internally. I look at a lot of little cities around us that are locally, from Red Bank, Cleveland, Dayton, Signal Mountain, and then out to cities that look comparable to us, like Montgomery, Alabama, Columbus, Georgia, Mobile, Alabama, a whole series of those departments to figure out where their base pays are. And we are low compared to a lot of those departments. And that's a reason that a lot of firefighters won't leave some of those smaller departments to come here, is because of that initial base pay. That's really the big hurdle that I have. So I'm anticipating in this next academy, I want to start another academy at some point. We're 34 personnel down, and I'm looking to hire another 16 to 20, just like I had planned in this modified academy. But obviously my budget won't support a full 34. So I'm really trying to whittle that down enough to at least help with the stopgap and keep firefighters in the seats, so we don't end up in a brownout situation or a situation where I'm having to pay overtime to keep truck staffed. So I'm trying something different, but I'm going back to a traditional approach with a fire academy. And that's really where my focus needs to lie right now, is trying to get that next thing done to keep all that, to keep brownouts and keep our service level high.
I agree as far as getting more firefighters trained, because we got a lot of retirees coming up soon, and we don't want to replace them.
That's correct. And those attrition dollars are what we kind of live and die by as far as our budget's concerned. So those vacancies have helped me maintain a budget. But I think having a frozen pay plan is one rub for the firefighters. I would love to be able to open that back up at some point, because the longer that goes on, the more anomalies it creates over time, and the more expensive it will be at some point to open that back up. So all those are just hurdles that we're trying to deal with and working with the administration to try to get it in the right spot. And it takes time, and really it backs everyone back into the corner, because at the end of the day, what it takes to pull all that off is money. I think, the fire service as a whole, there's 2 things that we spend money on. It's people, which is the most important part of our business, and then the equipment. And our equipment is not cheap, and it really helps protect firefighters when they have good equipment. And it's really the service delivery that our firefighters provide every single day is what I think is outstanding. Even in times like this, they're still in the front lines doing all the hard work. Without going too much further than that, just how proud I am of all the firefighters putting all their best foot forward to do this service.
Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
You don't want to go up. Your opinion is we should stay with what we currently have now for base pay.
No, that's not my opinion. My opinion is to raise the base pay. My opinion in this next iteration of this pay plan is to focus on raising that base pay that will affect the range across the entire spectrum of all of our employees.
hold on one second.
Okay. Go ahead, Clay.
Councilman Gilbert, we have like 6 other hands up. We'll come back to you if you have some other questions. Thanks for those responses too, Chief. Chairman, Vice Chair Ken Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, Chief.
Yes.
We know we've had a lot of conversations around this, so it really boils down to a number of things, but really it's about what that pay looks like and what it looks like within the budget and how we can, one of two things, well, I guess ultimately increase the base pay regardless of whether that's by the hour or not. Knowing that base pay, it may be the same for 2 people, one working 2080 and one working the 3100 hours. You still take home the same amount of money, but obviously you're working a whole lot harder for it. So when you start talking hours, that's when it starts becoming more apparent and more obvious. So I have a couple of questions, Chief. You mentioned being interested or wanting to push forward in increasing that base pay for our firefighters, and I support you 100% in that. So a 2-part question. One, what amount of money would it take? What is the cost to get those 90 plus firefighters up to the 1260 or 1263 an hour?
Okay.
That's one. And the other one is, what are you looking at getting the base pay moved up to? So those are the $2 questions I have for you. And then I have a third once we get past those, which is, which one of those or both will you be presenting as part of your next budget?
Okay. All right. So answer to question 1 and question 2 are almost identical because they're both related. So to get folks past that 1260 mark, that puts our base pay at 38,625, up from 33,093. To be able to pull that off, to get those 91 firefighters out of that range and still affect the whole range of our pay spectrum, it takes about $3.5 million to get to that point.
Okay. So my last question wasn't really let me ask that a different way. Do you intend at this point to include the $3.5 million in your BFO in the coming year?
Yes, and we do each year. Our BFO that we put in there, we look at the whole pay plan as a whole to fund the entire pay plan, to raise all that stuff up. So we put together a very prudent budget. We're cautious on our spending. I think we do a pretty good job as a department about spending money prudently for the taxpayers. But yes, it will be included in our BFO. It's included in our BFOs every time we submit. Unfortunately, and I get it from all the departments across the whole city, just because you ask for it doesn't mean you're going to get it. And we understand that cuts happen. And well, we ask for that each single time. And but we understand there's only enough money to go around. But yes, short answer, it will be applied to, again, to this year's BFO process.
Great. And just for all those who may be wondering, and why I asked the question, if you'd include it when you've included it every year, is because we don't see it unless it makes it past the administration.
Mm-hmm.
So we've never had an opportunity as a council to vote on that $3.5 million, but I certainly look forward on having that opportunity next year. And I hope to see it in there. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I think next will be Chairman Chip Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've always thought if you spend your nickels and dimes, you won't have any dollars to give your employees. And over the last few weeks, it seems like we've had a lot of federal dollars poured in. But the problem with federal grants is they make their way into your budget and they become line items, and they put a drain on your budget, and you're not able to pay your employees a livable wage, which we need to do. Chief, clear up for me something I need to understand. The $3.5 million that you spoke of.
Yes.
That is to implement or put into motion the pay plan from top to bottom or bottom to top. In other words, to bring up, to bring the 91 to the 38,625, but it also affects all the way up through the ranks. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. So by bringing that base pay up, for those 91 individuals, if we were to bring that base pay up, obviously the base pays at the other ranks have to be adjusted as well, and they have to be adjusted out. Otherwise, we'll have firefighters making more than captains. So we don't want to create those anomalies because of the promotional process and all that. So yes, it does affect it all the way out. And honestly, that's step one. I think that's just step one, is to get to that point, to make us more competitive so that we can have a lot more hireable firefighters coming in.
You know, the bottom line, well, one, we need to pay all of our employees a livable wage.
Agreed.
Period. What do you think it's costing us per year? I'm going to use a sexist term and say in manpower, but I also mean woman power as well. Councilwoman
Staffing.
Rose. Staffing, there you go. What is it costing us per year because we have such a low base play?
That's a tough question to answer.
Because at some point it becomes a numbers game, because obviously it costs money to put on an academy. And so if we raise our pay, we're to some degree not having to have as many academies. So, it becomes a point of diminishing returns, I think.
Yeah, I would have to look at the number of, I mean, it is expensive to put on academy. An academy of around 25 to 30 is about $1.2 million recurring. That's about roughly what an academy cost us. And that's just the salaries. It's right around $4 or $5 grand per person when it comes to outfitting them with gear and that kind of stuff, which is nominal compared to the salaries, but around 1.2 just to do an academy of 25 to 30. I don't think that answers your question.
Yeah, my question was about how many are we losing per year because related to pay specifically.
Oh, that's fair. So in all of our exit interviews, about 65% of all the firefighters that left here cited low pay as being the top reason. So there is quite a diminishing return there. I mean, it's even with trying to hire this new academy, I mean, we had 28 applicants at one point, and only 17 of them showed up for the interviews, and were whittled down to only being able to hire 3. And all of those individuals, most all of them, I mean, there was a couple medical things that got some folks, but the majority of those individuals cited base pay as the reason that they didn't want to come to here. So it works twofold. A lot of our line firefighters, especially the ones in our 91 that we have in that range, they got 0 to 6 years and see very little movement during that time frame. Mm-hmm. And it is appealing to go look elsewhere. And unfortunately, out of that 65% that have left here since 2015, we've lost a lot of individuals that have cited that pay for a reason. And I can get more specific numbers on the actual number of firefighters if you just give me a minute to find some of that data.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Councilman Darren Leffert.
Thank you, Chairman. Chief, thanks for being with us today. I'm just gonna share a thought with my colleagues and everybody who's listening, because I can see a lot of attendees. First of all, public safety is a primary responsibility of our city charter, and I believe in that firmly. And I also believe that we need to fix whatever we need to fix, and we need to find it, because I have also seen, as mentioned before, we seem to find funds where we need to find funds for other projects that come along. And I think that's been duly noted by our vice chairman and our chairman. So my question is, I'm really concerned. I'm very proud of the Chattanooga Fire Department, its ISO rating, but I'm also feel like we are probably due for a review. And I believe that review, if I follow correctly, could be even past due, and it might sneak up on us and have a tremendous effect on our ISO rating if they look at us and how we're operating currently. Chief, can you touch on that real quick? And then I've got a couple of other follow-up questions.
Sure. It was very difficult for our department to get to an ISO 1 classification, and it took a number of years for us to get to that point. And we are proud as a department to have that rating. We are due for a rating, and when we do get graded, they can have a surprise visit. They usually let us know a month or two in advance that they're coming. But what they'll look at in all of our business is number one is staffing. Staffing is one of those things that they look at very difficult or very detailed, just to see and make sure that we're maintaining staffing. And that's something that we as an administration watch on a daily basis, or on a monthly basis even, to ensure that staffing is correct. And we do, in the time of COVID and the time of injuries, our staffing numbers have been a little lower, particularly with 34 vacancies, and staffing can jeopardize an ISO rating of 1 at some point. It is a focus that ISO looks at, and it is something that could definitely upset that 1.
And Chief, that has an impact on the entire city insurance wise, can it not?
It does. Not near as much for homeowners, but for businesses with higher insurance rates, that insurance rating can be a little bit more dramatic for commercial type businesses. Homeowners would notice a small effect, but obviously the more dollars we're talking about for commercial properties, the more effect that has overall. But yes, you're correct.
So another thing that I have probably been made aware of, and I have a lot of firefighter friends, you know, my relationship with firefighters, and is that I'm going to share this fear. This fear is that we are going to lose not only new firefighters, we are going to lose their leaders, their mentors, the captains and whatnot. And that's a great concern to me, because I'm going to revert back to what I said a minute ago about public safety being a primary focus of our city charter. And I think this is an excellent opportunity to have these discussions. I'm glad that this has been brought to our attention. And I also want to echo the sentiments of Vice Chairman Smith, in that I too hope to see this in a BFO, because I would like the opportunity to vote on this, because it is that important. And it's also important that we provide a living wage to all of our city employees. And if that means that we need to take a hard look at some things, then I hope that we are able to maybe buck up and do that, or and not wait to a new administration that will do it. But I hear you, and I want every firefighter in the city to know that I hear you, and I think this council hears you. I can only speak for myself at this moment, but I think this is extremely important, and I'm looking forward to hearing solutions and working together to get where we need to get, because I don't want to see us lose that rating, but I also don't want to lose these great men and women who I know put their lives on the line for us every day, just like our Chattanooga police officers. And Chairman, I'm going to yield the floor and let someone else ask a few questions. But Chief, I appreciate you coming here, and I want you to know you have our utmost attention.
I appreciate that. And I just wanted to bounce one thing from Councilman Ledford. 64% of our folks that have left here in resignations have had 1 to 5 years. And those are individuals that are hard to train. It takes quite a bit of time. As you know, our academy is 6 months long. And to lose somebody that already has 5 years of experience does hurt our business quite a bit. So just a number to exactly what you were saying.
Well, that could mean a lot. That could mean the difference in life and death, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Hi,
sir.
Steve.
Hello.
A couple of questions, and I support everything you're saying. I'm trying to deal as chair of the budget with realities of dollars. So let me ask a couple of things. I think you said if you were to raise the 90 that are not at minimum wage and balance everything out, it would be $3 million. That sounds a little low. That's why
3.5 would only get our base pay up to 38,625.
That's what I thought. Now, and then when you have to, of necessity, balance everything out with higher places on the scale. We haven't finished that study, or I don't know, I'm not part of it. have you all looked at what the total number would be?
That number is what, that is the total number. Mine, without benefits. That 3.5 is just salaries.
I know.
Without benefits.
All right, so so it takes 3.5 to raise the bottom rung and then to get everybody else equalized, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and then the benefits are on top of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and do we have that figure or any approximation of that?
I would have to default to Daisy on that, Daisy or Mara to have that exact number.
Okay.
Well, maybe
so
70% is salaries, but it's just a number off the top of my head.
So that's the number in the BFO that you're going to be looking for.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct? Plus the equipment. Explain to me the difference between what we're calling the hourly workers, police and fire. It's a different set of, it is apples and oranges. So explain to me what the difference is. We're not talking 40-hour week.
No, we're not talking 40-hour week. Our firefighters are really kind of based on a 60-hour work week. They work nearly 1,000 hours more than a 40-hour work week. That's what the difference is. So what's put on a paycheck at the end of the day is looking at that based their overall salary and dividing the hours that they work in a year by that. And when you do that, that's why we end up with the 1059s and the ones that are lower than the 1260. So
it's because there's more hours.
Because there's more hours.
Yeah.
Simply because there's more hours.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is that we're very interested in looking at that BFO. And is Mara there?
Or here. Did you bring her in? You want to bring her in?
I do, sir. Please. That's why I asked.
She is on her way.
Good.
There she is.
Hey, Mara. Hi.
Hello.
So I know, and I guess all of you know, we began the BFO public hearings last night, and they'll be going on for 2. I haven't seen the list, but I hope all of you were there to be part of those. And because I know you want input, you want to hear from your constituents, and I know you want to be able to give input yourself. So I've sent you that schedule because I know you want transparency. So I'm hoping when I look at the list, y'all were there so that you could hear. But so Mara, is there any reason why the BFO from the fire department, how does that get reviewed? Is there any reason that once the submission is made, that it can't be seen?
Well, not that it, all BFOs, thank you, Councilwoman. All BFOs are able to be seen, but they wouldn't all be submitted to the council because we do have to balance the budget and offer a balanced budget.
I know that,
So,
but I think Councilman Smith said that he would like to see that. So we've always put the BFOs up, haven't we?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when the chief puts in his BFO, Councilman Smith can see it. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so is there
Madam-
some way we can get notice when those go up? I'm not sure. I know everybody, all my colleagues want to be part of it, of knowing what's going on. And
Sure, of course.
you know, and we're doing everything possible to make that happen and letting you know when it is happening. What would be your response to Councilman Smith?
Sure. Yes, ma'am. We always share all of the funded and non-funded offers when we present the budget to you. So we'll certainly be doing that again this year. And if you want past BFO offers, they're available through the BFO site.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Councilwoman, but that's not what I asked. I said that I wanted to see it as part of the budget so that I could vote on it, not to see the BFO specifically. But thank you so much for clarifying that.
Well, no, clarify that for me too, because I got to make sure it happens for you. What is it
Well,
again?
Hold on a second. Definitely. Since Maury is here and you bring it up and brought Chairman Smith in, we do have other hands. So please make sure we raise our hands when we're talking. But Chairman Smith, please elaborate on what you're saying.
All right, last thing, and thank you, Councilman. You're 100% correct. What I meant was that we didn't see the BFO as part of the budget in order to be able to vote on it, because as Maura stated, they present to us a balanced and complete budget. That balanced and complete budget did not include the 3.5 million that Chief Hyman said that he includes in his BFO every year. My point was, I hope to see it, meaning not the BFO, but I hope to see acceptance of his BFO in the budget so that I have an opportunity to vote in favor of such BFO in the budget. Thank you, Councilman.
Well, all right, Maura, you may want to hold on for a second because we may have some other questions for you as well. Councilman Oglesby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. One of the things that I see is critical is getting this salary to where we can maintain our great men and women on the fire department. But Chief, I want to know how many are we anticipating retiring in the next couple of years to show how critical it is to get our staffing up and our pay where it's competitive, where we can keep people.
Well, I can't predict attrition of folks that don't have their time in when they may or may not leave. But as far as retirements are concerned, we're in the middle of the 93 class, which has just got their time in their 26th, 27th year. I've had a number of those peel out, so I've probably got 3 or 4 more of them in the pipe that may want to go. The next class that was hired after that was the 96 class, which was my class. And that'd be another 25 individuals that could potentially retire come May of 2021. And that's just another reason why we try to maintain academies in anticipation of those retirements. But after my academy in 96, once those individuals start going, the way that the fire department was structured when Chief Coppinger was here, Mayor Coppinger now, we had academies at least once a year up until to date. And there were some academies that were done twice a year, and a couple different instances that I know. So I do know that the ball will really get to rolling, particularly when 96 class, May 17th gets here of 2021. I have a number of retirements on the books that will certainly start to escalate, and that number won't slow down for quite some time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I just wanted to emphasize how critical it is to get this thing right with this particular budget so we can start maintaining our great workforce with the fire department. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Coonrod, your mic is muted.
Thank you, Chair. Mara, my question is, previously when we had asked about wages, when the conversation was about making sure that our employees went to $15 an hour, and we said that right now we can't because of the COVID, understand that. And it brought up about the operations, or the capital funding, however, whichever one it was. But we were told that we couldn't use those dollars because it was an ongoing expense. Well, last week we received an email about a possible ongoing expense, and that was with the purchase of the hotel, when Chip asked about how will we continue to, operate it and things like that. And one of the options was to use the general fund dollars. Those fund dollars, if we was to use that for the hotel, would be a continuous stream of money to operate. So why can't we use those dollars to increase our firefighters' pay, or all of our employees to get them $15 an hour or more?
Well, the $15 an hour or more would be if we, let me start over, sorry. So the federal dollars would be used to pay for the purchase of that hotel. And so that would be a one-time expense. And
Right.
there may or may not be continuing operating expenses related to that. There may be other avenues where that money comes from for continuing operating expenses. There may be a partnership with a foundation, or there may be
Right. But I'm
some other
specifically,
grants.
Mara, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm specifically saying the use that said we could use the general. I want to focus on that portion of it. I know the other two, if that was an option as a possibility for a hotel to fund for funds continuously, why can't we use those funds to increase pay for our firefighters?
These are the funds that we are looking to use are from a federal grant and from CDBG dollars, and we can't use those for increased pay for firefighters or for any of our employees.
Mara, again, you're not.
Sorry if I'm not understanding your question.
I know what we're using the federal dollars for, to purchase the hotel. That's what we're using that for. When we received the email, I'm the only person that received this email on November the 3rd. The email was addressing Chip's question of how will we continue to fund, if we're gonna, use money to continue to fund it or staff, whatever it is. Another option was we can sell or donate it to a qualified nonprofit. Since we weren't trying to be in the hotel business, we just sold a hotel. So my thing is, if using general funds was an option, why can't we use the same option as an ongoing expense to increase the pay for our firefighters?
Okay.
If you want to get back to me later, that's fine. I mean, I understand what the federal dollars are being used, but we're talking about the general funds.
Okay.
That's the different thing.
Well, it would just be whether or not we had the money to do it, right?
I believe we got the money to do it. We just picking and choosing what we want to use it for.
Okay. Well, we have to have a balanced budget, and we gave you your budget this year with the revenues that we projected to have, and the expenses that we propose to use those projected revenues for. And that's what we have. I mean, those are dollars that were projected. I mean, we can look at that revenue page again, and those are the dollars that we're projected to have. And then you look at those expenses that we gave you as the expenses that we would pay for this year in this year's budget. And those are the dollars that we've got.
Well, I think, council, we got a decision to make when it comes to the use of our general funds, because if it's acceptable for us to use it as a possibility for a hotel to continue to fund in an operation, and that's ongoing and continuous, then we should be able to do that for our employees as well. Just my personal opinion.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman, that would be if that would be in next year's budget. And so it would be, it would be something that if it was funded in next year's budget, if there were revenues and if it was part of a budget proposal. Sorry.
Sorry, we're getting close to 6 o'clock for us to start our agenda session. I think Chairman Henderson, is that an old hand or is that a new hand, sir? I can't hear you, sir.
I said, I'm sorry, that's an old hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, it is now 5:47. Chief, thank you for definitely attending today. You see that this topic means a lot to everyone. I hope you would definitely go tell your firefighters that, we definitely have their best interest in mind. And if something was on the table today to get them to the pay that they need, I'm sure that this council would be more than happy to push that forward, not just for our firefighters, but for all the departments in city government, because as I move around, the morale is very low and it's just not enough money. And when we talked earlier, we talked about it's either going to be cutting something or, in the next administration or, even this administration raising in a sense of taxes or cutting. So in that sense, a lot of people just have to make some hard decisions. And so I think that this body definitely is willing to make those hard decisions to make sure that our workers are safe and feel that they're appreciated. Because you can say, I love you. You can say, I appreciate you. Good job. Pat on the back so often, but that doesn't pay the bills. So we definitely understand. And please let your crew know that we do have their best interests at heart, and we are going to continue to work hard to try to get this done. Is there anything you would like to say in closing, sir?
First of all, thanks to all the council for all your support here. Thanks to the administration that have been supporting us through getting our pay plan squared away up to this point. Unfortunately, COVID's hit and it's really created a strain on everybody. But I do know the council supports us. Our firefighters know the council supports us and the administration supports us. In closing, all the support is great. And like you said, action speaks volumes over just words. And our firefighters need that for their morale, for their pickup. They do an outstanding job every single day. And kudos to each and every one of them that do the work that they do in the middle of the night, in the middle of a rainstorm, in the middle of a tornado, so to speak. So I don't think any of that goes unnoticed. It certainly does not go unnoticed by me. My love for our firefighters is deeply, deeply passionate. The only caveat is we just don't have enough money to go around sometimes, and I understand that from city government standpoint. But we're going to continue to fight, and I'm going to continue to fight for the firefighters and be their best advocate.
There you go. That's why you're the chief. Excuse me, Maura, one quick question before we get out of here. We don't have an essential pay. Have there ever been anything on the book or thought about whereas even using the general fund for a one-time bonus, to just show our appreciation, to say, here's a bonus pay for this year for being an essential worker, for working hard. I would love to see if we can make some type of move toward that, to just let all of our city workers know that we appreciate them working during this trying time. And I know it's not nothing to change your lifestyle, but something we can give to just say thank you. That would be something that we can look into.
Be great to be able to do. It's just when our revenues are down, it's it's incredibly hard when our revenues are down for us to do something like that. But we would love to be able to do it as well.
All right, we'll definitely have a different talk about it. Thank you. I see no more questions. Right now it is 5:50, so we have about 10 minutes. So I think we can move any motions to adjourn right now till 6 o'clock.
You have the gavel, sir.
Yeah, you're
Adjourn to 6
till
o'clock.
6.
Bam.